We will tell you a story about the waiter Garcon, a true moralist. This story took place in a cafe at the entrance to the town of N. Visitors enjoyed a pleasant morning and the coffee that Garcon served them. The day was really perfect and nothing seemed to be able to spoil it. Suddenly, with the slamming of the door, trouble arose in the cafe. It was a dangerous killer who broke into the cafe. He started demanding money, threatening with a gun. Our waiter faced a choice. What should Garcon do according to each of the three moralities?
But what is morality? There are three main views on this concept: Kantianism, utilitarianism, and virtue morality. Let's see how the principles of each theory affect Carson and his actions. And we will begin with Kantianism. Immanuel Kant argued that morality is not preloaded into us, but rather reasoning and intellect is what defines what's good. And this reasoning should be math-like, universal to everyone and every problem. There are two imperatives that Kant considered: hypothetical imperatives, that are contingent with our desires, such as study to get a good grade, and categorical, which really reflects Kant's view on morality. These are our moral obligations, and they are discovered by implying reason. So to deal with our case, and to estimate the morality of particular action, we need to understand his second imperative by unfolding three Kant's formulations of it. The first formulation is the universalizability principle. Act only that maxim which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law without contradiction. Maxim is basically a set of steps, and universal law means the same principle always applied in similar situations. Basically, if you approve of the maxim of lying, then it's a universal action, and everyone can lie. This obviously leads to contradiction, which Kant highlights. The rule of thumb is: will this action be okay to be made by everyone? If the answer is no, then it's no for you also. Unless you may universalize it, it's not going to be what you're looking for. The next formulation is the humanity principle. Act so that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or that of another, always as an end and never as mere means. Again, let's unwrap what he was trying to say. Mere means is using one strongly with your own benefit, without recognizing their humanity or person. Kant believed that humans are ends in themselves, and therefore, when performing an action, we need to understand that other human beings are equally important and we need to recognize their goals and personality. And the last one is the principle of autonomy. The will of every rational being is universal legislative will, and according to Kant, a will cannot depend upon any interest. Nothing else would make you decide other than a sheer fact that it's your duty. For example, you made a promise and you won't break it because it will hurt other feelings. And you don't like to hurt feelings because it makes you feel bad, which is an interest and it's against the principle. These are formulations that describe the same categorical imperative.
Going back to our example, what would Kant recommend to the waiter? Garcon has a knife nearby, so he could attack a burglar to save the people in the cafe. However, if he can harm someone, then according to the universalizability principle, everyone should be able to attack everyone. So the only option is to stay aside and wait for help.
Many will find Garson's behavior irrational, since help may be late or not come at all. His inaction may not only result in the robbery of a cafe, but also in human deaths, and it seems obvious to fight back against the robber. But is there any morality to doing so? Yes, there is. Utilitarianism focuses on consequences of our actions. So, if Kantianism forbids lying to someone even if it will save people, then for utilitarianism, morally good actions is the one that has the best consequences. But how to measure which result is better? The founders of utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, believed that all actions should be measured in terms of happiness and pleasure they produce. So, utilitarianism is a kind of hedonistic moral theory based on which we should strive for pleasure and happiness and work to avoid pain. Moreover, utilitarianism is other regarding. We should act so as to produce the greatest good for the greatest number, even if it will make us less happy. Utilitarians believe that any person is no more special than anyone else. This theory has two branches. The first one is act utilitarianism. It argues that you should always choose the most beneficial actions for the largest number of people, even if they harm the fewest. But pain is pain. For example, throwing yourself on a sputtering hand grenade to save your comrades, or donating all your organs to save several lives. No matter how it affects yourself or how much pain it can cause to innocent people, the main goal is the best for the most. The second branch is rule utilitarianism, which allows us to refrain from actions that can maximize utility in the short term and instead follow the rules that maximize utility in most cases.
Therefore, in our story, by following the principle of utilitarianism, Garcon should act so he will produce the greatest good for the greatest number. Thus, he decides to grab a knife and fight back the robber in order to save the cafe customers.
But is this action too bold? Maybe we should have assessed the situation and only then made the right and meaningful decision. How do we know what is good and that we are on the right track? This is when virtue morality comes into play. The idea of it is to perform activities caused by the rational soul in accordance with virtue or excellence. Aristotle argued that we have a built in desire to be virtuous. In other words, the desire to do the right thing at the right time, in the right way, in the right amount, towards the right people. Sounds kind of vague, isn't it? Nevertheless, according to Aristotle, we acquire virtue through practice, or we can emulate moral examples. What would Captain America do? Now, regarding the part about rational soul. He believes that virtue is a golden mean between two vices, deficiency and excess. For example, the virtue of generosity. It is obviously bad to be greedy, but prodigality is not good either. It is not generous to give drugs to an addict or to buy a round of drinks for everyone in a bar when you need money to feed your cat. In the end, virtue morality recommends estimating the circumstances and acting virtuous with respect to them.
The final kind of immorality and the third possible ending of the story. What would Aristotle suggest? Garcon should consider all the risks the robber's physical superiority, the lack of escape, and the danger to himself and to the customers. He won't do nothing, and he won't go out on a limb either. But he does have an opportunity of making a discreet phone call to the police. That's how Garcon will proceed.